Once, in the forgotten lands beyond the desolate peaks, there was a kingdom called Velmoria. It was a land of fertile valleys, silver rivers, and sky-reaching forests. But for 40 years, the name Velmoria was spoken only in whispers, for it had come under the rule of King Malgrin the Dreaded, whose cruelty became legend across the realm and beyond. Malgrin had not always been a king. He was born the third son of a noble family, far from the line of succession. His eyes were cold from the day he first opened them, and the nurses said he never cried, not even as an infant. Where other boys played, Malgrin trained. Where others laughed, he listened, calculated, and waited. He rose through treachery. His father was poisoned. His brothers died in a hunting accident. When the old king fell ill, Malgrin was already at court, whispering into ears, promising gold, power, or mercy, whichever currency men would trade their souls for. By the time the old king died, Malgrin was not just ready, he was inevitable. King Malgrin wore no crown. Instead, he had an iron circlet forged from the swords of his enemies, melted down in the fires of the mountain forges. It was heavy, brutal, and plain. Much like his reign, he ruled through fear, not love. His laws were written in blood, enforced by his elite guards known as the Black Hands, masked enforcers trained to feel no mercy. Villages that disobeyed his taxes were burned. Those who protested were crucified along the roads leading to the capital, their bodies left as grim markers of his rule. His court was a den of vipers. Ministers plotted, whispered, and watched their backs. But Malgrin always seemed to know. He had spies among spies, some so close to his enemies that they wore the same colors and ate at the same tables. His punishments were theatrical. One noblewoman who questioned his judgment was sewn into a sack with scorpions and thrown into the river while the court was ordered to watch. He banned music. Laughter was taxed. Even weddings required approval from the crown, and if he found the couple's names displeasing, he'd rename them or forbid the union altogether. They called him the Iron Wolf behind his back. To his face, only "Your Dread Majesty" would do. High in the mountains, Malgrin constructed a massive prison known as the Tower of Echoes, where he sent his enemies to vanish. It was said that the screams of the tortured echoed so loudly through the stone halls that even the guards went mad. No one ever returned. But it was not only criminals who were sent there. Scholars who questioned his history, poets who hinted at rebellion in verse, and clerics who dared to speak of a god above the king were all taken away. Inside the tower, prisoners were forced to listen to their own recorded screams played back at them, day and night, a cruel experiment by Malgrin's twisted court alchemist, Vernox the Whisperer. But tyranny cannot last forever. Among the people, a spark smoldered. A former captain of the guard, Elira Darnan, who had once been one of the Black Hands, began to gather the scattered remnants of resistance. She knew the secrets of the palace, the weaknesses in the king's defenses, and the silent hatred buried in the hearts of the people. Her emblem was a red phoenix, rising from ashes, and she became known as the Crimson Flame. At first, the rebellion was small. Sabotaged shipments, freed prisoners, scattered attacks. But Malgrin, in his arrogance, believed no force could touch him. He responded with more cruelty, burning entire towns for rumors of harboring rebels. But the more he crushed, the more the people rose. From the eastern farmlands to the western ports, uprisings erupted like wildfire. Elira struck a fatal blow when she freed a group of prisoners from the Tower of Echoes and revealed to the world what horrors lay within. Pain had turned some of those men and women into husks, others into warriors with nothing left to lose. The people of Velmoria had seen the cost of silence. They had paid enough. The final siege of the capital lasted 9 days. Malgrin, barricaded in his obsidian palace, watched as the flames rose around him. He sent wave after wave of soldiers to crush the rebellion, but many turned on him. His final loyal guards were slain by their own kin. Elira, dressed in black armor trimmed with crimson, confronted him in the throne room. The iron circlet still sat on his brow, but his face was gaunt, haunted by the ghosts of his own making. "You dare challenge a king?" he sneered, even as the walls trembled with explosions. "No," she said. "I challenge a tyrant." Their duel was brutal. Malgrin was old, but he was strong and cunning. Yet Alira had something he did not, purpose. She struck him down with his own sword, severing the circlet in two. His last words were not curses or pleas, but laughter, cold and empty. "They will forget you," he said, blood leaking from his lips, "and become me again." Malgrin was buried beneath the rubble of his palace. No stone marked his grave. His laws were burned, his statues shattered. The Crimson Reformation began in the wake of his death. Music returned to the street. Laughter flowed freely. The Tower of Echoes was torn down, brick by brick, its ruins left as a warning. But even decades later, parents still told tales of Malgrin the dreaded to frighten misbehaving children. And in the dark corners of the world, some whispered that his soul had never left, that it lingered in shadows, watching, waiting. For cruelty, once given a crown, never truly dies. It merely sleeps, until the next Iron Wolf awakens. The banners of rebellion had long since been torn down and replaced by the silver and crimson sigil of the new order, the Phoenix Throne. Alira Darnan, once a fugitive, now ruled as High Protector of Velmoria, not queen, for she refused a title so soaked in blood, from a palace not of obsidian, but of carved marble and sunlit glass, constructed atop the ruins of Malgrin's dark fortress. Velmoria breathed again. The arts returned. Temples reopened. The Tower of Echoes became a memorial garden where flowers bloomed in the shape of phoenix wings. But rebuilding a kingdom is not the same as liberating it, and even phoenixes cast long shadows. The rebellion had not only united the just. In the chaos, thieves, warlords, and false heroes rose in the rebellion's name, carving their own petty dominions. Now, with Malgrin gone, many of them believed the throne was theirs to claim. Whispers of General Verne, the blood son of the Eastern Ridge, grew louder. He had been a loyal commander during the siege but refused to disband his army after peace. He ruled the East like a king in all but name, taxing trade routes, controlling mines, and training his soldiers in secret. Meanwhile, former members of the Black Hands, once disbanded, began to re-emerge under a new name. The Silent Crescent, a shadow force that moved in the dark, assassinating judges, threatening officials, even killing artists who painted Alira too nobly. They left behind a symbol, a circlet cracked in half. Alira knew what it meant. "Tyrants never die," she said to her council one night. "They simply change faces." Though Alira swore never to wear a crown, the people still pressed her toward power. They saw her not as a soldier, but a savior, and saviors become myths, and myths become rulers. She resisted, at first. But each day brought more trouble: rival factions, resource shortages, border raid. The people cried out for stability, order, strong leadership. So, against her instincts, she signed the Phoenix Accord, formalizing her role as ruler under the title Sovereign of Flame, granting her sweeping authority to rebuild and defend Velmoria. That night, she held a meeting with her closest friend, Talon Ves, the blind bard who had sung songs of revolution during the darkest days. "You realize what you've become," he said, sipping bitterroot tea. "A woman who commands an empire, rules by decree, and silences dissenters in the name of peace." "I silence no one," she replied sharply. "No," he agreed. "But some now do it for you, in your name." She said nothing. Outside, the people chanted her name. Strange events began to unfold in the north. Farmers reported seeing burning wolves roaming the edge of forests, eyes glowing red like coals. Statues of Malgrin, thought destroyed, reappeared overnight in crumbling towns, rebuilt in secret. Some claimed they heard his voice in dreams, cold, mocking, promising return. In one village, a child was born with black eyes and no heartbeat, yet lived and spoke the words, "I will finish what I began." the high priestess of the Ember Temple, Melis-san, came to Alira bearing a dire warning. His soul was bound to this land by blood and hatred. You cannot kill what is rooted in memory. Alira clenched her fist. Then we burn the root. But she could not burn memory. And Malgrin's legacy was not only in his ghosts, it was in the way people now feared the night again, the way children flinched at men in black cloaks, the way power whispered in her own ears. At the heart of the new palace was a chamber known as the Mirror Room, where Alira often stood alone. Each wall held tall, warped mirrors, not enchanted, but meant to show a person not as they wished to be seen, but as they truly were. One night, during a storm, Alira stepped into the chamber, wearing her crimson cloak and silver circlet. Thunder cracked. The mirrors rippled. In each one, she saw a different version of herself. In one, she wore Malgrin's iron circlet, her hands soaked in blood. In another, she was bound and beheaded by rebels. In a third, she saw nothing but ash and fire. But the last mirror showed a child, a girl sitting on a throne of feathers and light, smiling, innocent, surrounded by people who laughed without fear. She reached toward that mirror. It shattered. In the final lines of a letter found years later, Alira wrote, "I fear I have not ended the iron reign, I have merely reforged it in gentler chains. We tore down a tyrant and raised a legend. But legends, too, become cages." Soon after, the Silent Crescent launched a coordinated strike on the capital. Fires erupted in the lower district. A dozen councillors were slain. In the confusion, General Verne marched westward with 50,000 soldiers, demanding that Alira abdicate and declare Velmoria a republic. Faced with rebellion from within and invasion from without, Alira gathered her captains. "I will not become what I fought to destroy," she said. "But I will not let this kingdom fall to wolves again." And so, she donned the broken circlet, reforged not from enemy swords, but from the chains of the Tower of Echoes. No longer iron, but tempered steel. She led her army into the east. The Second War for Velmoria had begun.